Prince and the Pauper by Mark Twain. Chapter 5. Sir Miles. Miles took Edward to an inn near London Bridge. People in the streets shouted,
"King Henry is dead! Long live King Edward!"
Edward thought of his father and became very sad and started to cry. King Henry was a difficult man, but he was always kind to him. And now he was dead. Then they heard more shouts.
Long live King Edward!
So now I am king?
He said with tears in his eyes.
Prince or king,
Said Miles.
you can stay with me tonight. We'll eat some food and rest.
Miles's room at the inn was small. There was a bed, 2 chairs, a table, and a washstand. Edward was very tired and fell on the bed.
Call me when the food is ready.
He said. Miles saw that the boy was cold and covered him with his jacket.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Said Miles, smiling. Miles went to get some food.
Your banquet is ready, Your Majesty.
Edward washed his hands and sat down at the table. Miles sat down too.
Wait,
Said Edward.
stand up. I am your king. You must wait for my orders.
Miles stood up.
Now you can sit down.
They were both hungry and started to eat. After dinner, Edward looked at Miles and said,
You are a courageous soldier of the king, and you are good to me. Give me your sword and go down on your knee.
With the side of the sword, Edward touched Miles on the shoulder.
Stand up, Sir Miles Hendon. Now you are one of my men.
Miles stood up and laughed. Edward fell asleep with his head on the table, and Miles took him to bed.
Poor boy.
He said,
Perhaps he'll be well again after a long sleep.
That night, Miles slept on the floor. The next morning, Miles looked at the boy sleeping on the bed.
The poor boy.
He thought,
He can sleep another hour, and I'll go out to the market and buy him some new clothes.
in the streets of London, everyone was talking about the new king. Miles listened to them.
People say the new king is mad,
Said an old woman.
He doesn't want to be king. He says he's a pauper.
Yes, he says it's all a mistake.
Said a young man.
The poor young king is mad! Completely mad!
Said another man, laughing. Miles started thinking.
Perhaps Edward is telling me the truth. Perhaps he is the King of England.
He went back to the inn with the new clothes. When he got back to his room, he was very surprised. Edward was gone. Miles immediately went to the man at the inn and asked,
Where is the young boy?
Oh dear.
Said the man.
Please don't get angry, sir.
Well, where is he?
Asked Miles angrily.
Answer my question.
The man's face became red.
When you were away, a man came and took the boy with him.
A man?
Said Miles. surprised.
Oh no. It was probably his father. The poor boy. Where did they go?
Well, sir, they went towards Southwark,
Said the man.
and they disappeared in the crowd.
Poor Edward.
Said Miles.
I must find him.
He ran out of the inn and went towards Southwark, looking for his young friend. At the same time, Edward had to follow John Canty through a forest outside London to an old barn. Inside the barn, there were many beggars, thieves, and vagabonds. John Canty knew most of them.
What strange people.
Thought Edward, looking at them silently.
Where do they come from?
Who's this boy, John?
Asked an old beggar with dirty clothes.
He's my son.
Said John Canty.
No,
Cried Edward.
I'm not his son. I'm the King of England.
Everyone in the barn started to laugh. An old beggar with long hair and no teeth said,
The King of England. He's the king of fools.
and everyone laughed again. Edward was very sad. Soon, everyone was saying unkind things to him, and he wanted to cry, but he didn't. He went to sit in a corner and thought,
Will Miles find me here?
he was tired and hungry, and he soon fell asleep. When Edward woke up the next morning, everyone in the barn was sleeping. He quickly and quietly opened the door and ran away into the forest. He ran all the way to the first village and stopped at the market. Suddenly, he heard a voice.
Edward.
He turned around and saw Miles.
Oh, how happy I am to see you.
Said Edward, smiling.
I looked for you everywhere.
Said Miles. Edward told him about John Canty. And Miles told him what he heard at the market the day before.
I believe you. And now I know you're the king, Your Majesty.
Said Miles.
Let's go to my home, Hendon Hall. It's not far from Westminster Palace, and we can think of a plan to help you get back into the palace.
I'm glad you believe me, Sir Miles.
Said Edward.